To help students become better readers, it is important to develop their fluency skills. Fluency is the ability to read a text accurately and quickly. When students become fluent readers, they recognize words automatically and group words together in order to better comprehend a text. In order to develop reading fluency, students must practice reading out loud frequently. Struggling readers may require extra support in order to develop confidence while they read. Although students may hesitate to read out loud by themselves, they will often respond well to choral reading activities. One method known to improve reading fluency is called the neurological impress method. As described by Heckelman in 1969, the neurological impress method is a multisensory approach to reading instruction that is an impress, an etching in of word memories on the natural processes. Basically, it involves a teacher and a student reading the same passage in unison with a few minor specifications. In order to implement the neurological impress method with a student, follow the preceding steps. Step 1. Choose the text to be read. This should be at the student's reading level or slightly below the student's reading level. To motivate the child you are working with, try to pick a story or an article geared towards his or her interests. Step 2. Seating arrangement. The student should be sitting slightly in front of you. You should be sitting on the side of the student's dominant ear. Both you and the student should be holding the text that you are reading. Step 3. Place your finger underneath the first word of the text. The student should place his or her finger on top of yours. Once you begin to read, you will move your finger under each of the words as you read them. Step 4. Begin reading the same passage together out loud. You should read slightly faster than the student while modeling good fluency skills. Remember, speak directly into the ear of the student. Read the text together with expression. Pause only when punctuation dictates a pause, such as at a comma or a period. Do not stop to correct the student. Repeat, do not stop to correct the student. This is extremely important. Constantly correcting a student while they read may discourage him or her from practicing. In order to become strong readers, students need to practice without worrying about perfection. The best thing you can do is to model good reading skills. The student will learn from your example. The following videos are examples of how to implement the neurological impress method with a student. I hope you learn a little bit more about a great reading strategy, and hopefully you'll be able to try this at home or in a classroom. Thank you for watching.
Opened his eyes. A chilly wind blew into the treehouse. Oak leaves swirled outside the window. Look, we have our costumes, said Annie. I'm not a princess or a vampire. Jack looked at their clothes. He was wearing a knee-length tunic and tights. Annie was wearing a long dress with an apron. Camelot costumes, Jack said softly. They looked out the window together. They were high in a huge oak tree in a thick forest. The afternoon sun was low in the autumn sky. So what do we do now? Said Jack. The invitation says we're supposed to meet Merlin in the heart of the oak, said Annie. Yeah, but what does that mean? Said Jack, scowling. The heart of an oak? Let's go down and try to figure it out, said Annie. She carefully placed their invitation in a corner of the treehouse. Then she and Jack climbed down the rope ladder. They stepped onto the leafy ground. In the fading daylight, they began circling the base of the giant oak. They walked all the way around until they came to the rope ladder again. We're back where we started, said Jack. We never found the heart. Wait a minute, said Annie. "What's that?" She pointed to a long, thin crack in the bark of the tree trunk. A silver of light seemed to be coming from the crack. No matter who you are, no matter where you live, and no matter how many people are chasing you, what you don't read is often as important as what you do read. For instance, if you are walking in the mountains and you don't read the sign that says "Beware of Cliff" because you are busy reading a joke book instead, you may suddenly find yourself walking on air rather than on a sturdy bed of rocks. If you are baking a pie for your friends and you read an article entitled "How to Build a Chair" instead of a cookbook, your pie will probably end up tasting like wood and nails instead of like crust and fruity filling. And if you insist on reading this book instead of something more cheerful, you will most certainly find yourself moaning in despair instead of wriggling into light. So if you have any sense at all, you will put this book down and pick up another one. I know of a book, for instance, called The Littlest Elf, which tells the story of a teensy-weensy little man who scurries around fairyland having all sorts of adorable adventures. And you can see at once that you should probably read The Littlest Elf and wriggle over the lovely things that happen to this imaginary creature in a made-up place instead of reading this book and moaning over the terrible things that happen to the 3 Baudelaire orphans in the village where I am now typing these very words. The misery, woe, and treachery contained in the pages of this book are so dreadful that it is important that you don't read any more of it than you already have. The Baudelaire orphans, at the time the story begins, were certainly wishing that they weren't reading the newspaper that was in front of their eyes. A newspaper, as I'm sure you know, is a collection of supposedly true stories written down by writers who either saw them happen or talked to people who did. These writers are called journalists, and like telephone operators, butchers, ballerinas, and people who clean up after horses, journalists can sometimes make mistakes. This was certainly the case with the front page of the morning edition of the Daily Punctilio, which the Baudelaire children were reading in the office of Mr. Poe.